This is a Jehovah's Witness leaflet that I received a few weeks back, and I thought I'd give my opinion on what it has to say. On the first page is the question, should we question God? There are two ways of tackling this question, and they both involve an assumption. The first way is to assume that God exists. If God exists, then his many qualities such as omnipotence would be real. One of the qualities of a monotheistic God is that he is amoral, meaning that he is above morality. This means that the answer would be no, because he would be outside all ethical rulings and moral guidelines. The second way to tackle this question is to assume that God does not exist. With this assumption in mind, God's many attributions would no longer apply, so he would be subject to the same rules and guidelines that humans are. So which answer do we go with? Simple, the second one. Why? Because the assumption that God does not exist is the default assumption. And it always will be, until God can be proven by scientific means. Anyway, let's see what the leaflet has to say. Does my life have a purpose? Now the leaflet starts off with a similar view to mine, in saying that humans are not like unreasoning animals and are therefore in need of a purpose. But it then proceeds to dictate to the reader exactly what their purpose should be. A life of fear and keeping to the 10 Commandments. Firstly, being a God-fearer is nothing to be proud of. It means that you suck up to an invisible character in the sky because you're afraid that he'll send you to a fictitious burning lake of fire. Get a grip. And keeping the 10 Commandments is a meaning of life? Are you kidding me? The first commandment is to have no other gods. So does that mean that polytheists are leading a meaningless life? Another commandment is to remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. So does that mean that a person who works on Sundays isn't leading a life of purpose? That's stupid. The leaflet then states that the most important thing we can do is learn all we can about our Creator and draw close to him as our friend. Who would want to be friends with a genocidal, homophobic, egocentric, infanticidal, hypocritical, jealous monster? Especially after learning all you can about them. It then goes on to say, husbands ought to be loving their wives as their own bodies. Whoa now! Does that mean that husbands should treat their wives as their bodies belong to them? I don't know, so I can't speculate. This leaflet has to be a bit more clear on what it means. But maybe the Bible can clear things up. Ephesians 5:22 says, wives, submit yourselves to your husbands as you do to the Lord. In what way does this not specifically infer that women are inferior to men? So for that, I think this leaflet has no clue what it's going on about. Its four main purposes of fearing God, keeping to pointless rules, becoming friends with an asshole, and repressing women all suck. What will happen when I die? I agree with the first part of this leaflet's answer, which says that at death our consciousness ceases to be. But I think consciousness ceases at death because our brain, which processes information to create the senses, dies. The leaflet, however, states that there's no consciousness merely because the Bible says so. The next part of this answer states that humans were never supposed to die, and they were only mortal after Adam and Eve ate the forbidden fruit. If that's true, then wouldn't the human population be horribly overpopulated in a few thousand years? If no one can die and everyone's being fruitful and multiplying, then humanity would never stop growing. It's a good job that Adam and Eve really did eat the forbidden fruit, or would literally be piled on top of each other right now. Whoever wrote the Bible, and indeed this leaflet, didn't think that one through now, did they? The final part of this answer is insane. It states that one day, God will bring back the majority of those who have died. Was the person who wrote this sniffing pens while they said that? I don't think I've ever heard anything quite so inane in all my life, idealistically and practically. Anyway, on to the final question. Why does God allow me to suffer? The leaflet first states that there is two views on why we suffer. Some people believe that God permits suffering to teach us to be humble and compassionate. Others feel that we suffer in this life to repay for the sins committed in a previous life. Now what about the other view, shared by me and many others, that suffering is coincidental and random? Which, by the way, seems to be, true. Sometimes good people suffer, and sometimes bad people get whatever they want. Karma is not real, and suffering is arbitrary. The leaflet explains suffering by saying that God allows suffering to continue at present for good reasons. Consider just one. It is often people who cause suffering to others. Right, because no one suffers from non-human factors like disease, cancer, famine, and poverty. Wrong. These factors cause more suffering and deaths than humans. Significantly more. If God is not willing to prevent suffering and death caused by non-human interventions, then he is malevolent. No argument. Therefore,